More than just a music festival, Woodstock 69 was a living, breathing example of revolt, love, and peace that helped define a generation. In addition to the iconic performances by The Who, Jimi Hendrix, and Janis Joplin, Woodstock had scenes that were overlooked by the media. The secret tales of ingenuity, friendship, and mayhem that influenced this momentous occasion are revealed by rare photos. How did the 400,000 people who braved the rain, mud, and food shortages live? These images take us back to the core of the counterculture movement, from temporary shelters to moments of unbridled artistic expression. Come along as we explore the lesser-known aspects of Woodstock that contributed to its genuine, unforgettable quality. Cars abandoned for Woodstock. Some people questioned if the excitement surrounding Woodstock was warranted before the event. They decided not to purchase tickets since they thought it would be a letdown. It appears, nevertheless, that a large number of people disagreed with them. Hundreds of thousands gathered on a dairy farm in Bethel, New York, as the festival's opening date drew near. Due to its tremendous interest, traffic rapidly increased 24 hours before the event's scheduled start time. According to reports, the traffic jams extended 20 miles from the farm, leaving some stranded to wonder if they would arrive at Woodstock in time. As a result, several music lovers left their vehicles on the road and continued to walk the remaining distance. Woodstock's peaceful prayer. Thankfully, many fans arrived at Woodstock in time for the opening ceremony despite the traffic problems. An opening act at a typical festival might be a musician, but a guru was the preferred pick for this event. Satchidananda Saraswati shared a prayer of love and peace, which led to his becoming known as the Woodstock Guru. A look inside Woodstock shows that Satchidananda had a sizable audience to reach with his message, and most could identify with it. Many people were drawn to the festival in the first place because of his desire to spread love and peace. Thus it makes sense that his audience was enthralled at this very moment. Crowd exceeded expectations. The organizers of Woodstock reportedly stated that they were only anticipating 50,000 attendees when making arrangements for the event's venue. However, many individuals were said to have arrived prepared for the significant event several days before the festival had even begun. This demonstrated unequivocally that Woodstock would be much larger than anyone had predicted. Over 400,000 people are said to have attended the festival after it got underway. One of these Woodstock pictures demonstrates how crowded the venue was. To the chagrin of those who had forked over the cash ahead of time, many had not bought tickets to attend. Thankfully, there was no riot. Peace amidst chaos. To enjoy Woodstock 69, you must give up your personal space. There was no reason why somebody who disliked large crowds couldn't enjoy the 3 days of celebration. Nevertheless, the day is frequently recalled as a happy occasion. Things stayed that way after Satchidananda Saraswati started the festival with love and compassion. Of course, there were problems at Woodstock. Several factors could occasionally depress the atmosphere, at least for certain visitors. However, regardless of what transpired on the occasion, the idea of happiness and celebration was never crushed. This explains why images from Woodstock that capture the essence of the event feel so genuine. Janis Joplin performs. Those who attended Woodstock 69 were particularly drawn to some of the musical performers that played there. In reality, though, hardly many were planned to perform. However, Janis Joplin was one such person. It was significant because it was one of her first appearances following her departure from Big Brother and the holding company. However, Janice was not given much time to prepare for the event, nor was she aware of that. She didn't know about Woodstock until a few days before the festival, and like the organizers, didn't realize how big it would be. She thought the festival was exciting and fun, according to her brother. Flags with peace signs. You may be shocked to learn that the U.S. flag was flown at Woodstock, considering the current state of the U.S. at the time. It appeared frequently, occasionally as flags, and other times as clothing components. It seems that attendees chose to honor the freedom that the festival is meant to represent. Some of the American flags at Woodstock were different from those that the rest of us are likely accustomed to seeing. Many of these flags used the peace symbol in place of the stars. These had existed to counter the Vietnam War since its inception. Artistic expression flourished. Even though many people attended Woodstock 69 to hear music, there was much more going on there than just what happened on stage. After all, The Woodstock Music and Art Fair was the festival's official name. Therefore, it should come as no surprise that throughout those 3 days, a lot of creative activity that wasn't related to music took place. A woman is seen in one of these Woodstock pictures stitching a tapestry on the grass while taking in the event's atmosphere. Many people used the occasion to express themselves artistically, so she wasn't the only one. While some exchanged their inventions for items of comparable worth, others sold them to other participants. Issues with water pumps. Woodstock's attendance exceeded projections, which was fantastic since it allowed more people to witness such a momentous historical event. Unfortunately, guests encountered significant problems during the festival because the organizers were unprepared for the many attendees. This included issues with restroom usage, as there were insufficient restrooms spread out around the farm. Another concern was people's access to clean water. To prevent dehydration, guests were fortunate to have access to various water pumps. However, these appeared to be few and far between compared to the number of people who attended Woodstock. Additionally, they left the nearby fields muddy and soggy, which wasn't always the best. Woodstock on Yasgur's farm. Would Woodstock 69 have ever occurred if it weren't for Max Yasgur? According to reports, Max agreed to host the festival on his dairy farm for $50,000 in payment. Even though some people were against the event in Bethel, their opposition was insufficient to stop it in its tracks. Given what transpired at Woodstock, we may question if Max would have joined them if he had known what would happen here. After all, he didn't consent to having so many people on his property. But perhaps the throng and filth were worth it because his farm will live on in history forever. Animals left on farm. It should be no surprise that Max Yasgur had animals on his property before Woodstock since he ran a dairy farm. However, the fact that the man left some of these creatures there when the celebrations began may surprise you. This might have been an issue, given how many people attended the event. Naturally, there was little chance that the guests would seriously hurt the animals. These folks didn't want to annoy the creatures since they were all about love and peace. But the sheer volume of people could have frightened the cows and led to mishaps. Fortunately, it doesn't appear to have been the case. Doctors helped for free. Even though the cows trampled no one at Woodstock, there were nonetheless injuries at the event. However, it's to be anticipated when hundreds of thousands of people are crowded onto a farm only meant to house 50,000 people. Thankfully, most reported occurrences were minor, including someone being cut. Several individuals are seen working in a first aid tent that festival-goers built in one of the images taken inside Woodstock. According to reports, dozens of medical professionals volunteered to provide unpaid assistance to needy individuals. They seemed inspired by the spirit of love and compassion that pervaded Woodstock and believed that wealth would undermine that. Journalists captured Woodstock. The media portrayed Woodstock 69 as an impending catastrophe when it initially came to light. In several instances, that persisted after the event started, with media outlets emphasizing the drawbacks of the packed celebration. However, not all journalists were interested in portraying Woodstock as the worst event in recent history. One author, who supposedly felt this way, was Barney Collier, who would not write about Woodstock until he could present the event in his preferred manner. Like those seen here working in less than ideal circumstances, he had witnessed the festival's highs and lows and wanted to reflect it truthfully. Barney was granted permission by his editors to share his experience. Joan Baez gained popularity. While some of the acts at Woodstock were well known and drew large crowds, this was not always the case. Thankfully, after the event, support for many of the people on stage who were less well-liked than others quickly increased. One such individual was Joan Baez, whose career was sparked by her performance on the first night. Many people listened to her set list and truly loved it, even though she didn't begin performing until about 1 in the morning. That evening, when a light rain poured on the audience, she sang 14 songs. Joan told Rolling Stone years after Woodstock that she had a lovely time and was grateful to have been allowed to appear with some well-known people. Navigation without smartphones. These days, navigating a festival might be challenging, but there are some tips to help. For example, GPS and smartphones make finding your way more straightforward and connecting with pals. Regretfully, that wasn't available in 1969. That wasn't the best option because Woodstock was packed beyond capacity. Fortunately, resources were still available to aid in this, especially regarding navigation. For example, anybody attempting to find the event can reach the farm by following the traffic flow. Additionally, to keep everyone informed of pertinent information, Chip, a production team member, announced the news over loudspeakers throughout the festival. Rain didn't bother all. On paper, an outdoor festival may appear fantastic, but it is always susceptible to weather-related disruptions. There are numerous ways that this can ruin the fun, including heat waves and rainstorms. Rain seems to have been the main factor that dampened the proceedings at Woodstock 69. Not everyone was affected by this. It was intermittent during the 3-day event. People eager to see their favorite artists and enjoy the atmosphere of love and tranquility tolerated the bad weather. Naturally, when a performer's act was delayed by rain, it was occasionally challenging to accomplish that. Mud issues at Woodstock. The rain at Woodstock did more than just soak spectators, even though some individuals might not have cared much about getting wet. Since the festival was held on a farm, only grass and mud were beneath everyone's feet. That becomes mud when it becomes wet, which exacerbates the situation. As one of the Woodstock pictures demonstrates, there was a lot of that stuff during the 3 days of the festival. Some even removed their shoes and allowed their feet to sink into the mud as part of the experience, showing that they didn't mind it. Others found it difficult to enjoy the celebration, making it somewhat dreary. Creative rain solutions. When the heavens opened, the attendees at Woodstock 69 had two options. They had two options: let the rain depress them and ruin this special historical occasion, or figure out how to deal with the bad weather and keep having fun. Someone who reportedly accomplished the latter is depicted in one of the several images taken inside Woodstock. A chair is often used for sitting, but it worked well as headwear in this case. It wasn't a foolproof method of preventing the rain, but at least it made an effort. The inventiveness of the people of Woodstock was not limited to music and arts and crafts. DIY shelters at Woodstock. At festivals, tents are frequently seen everywhere. They make a lot of sense because they offer participants shelter and are portable. However, it appears that it made no difference that so few individuals had them at Woodstock. During their time in Bethel, people possessed the skills necessary to construct their shelters. One of the Woodstock photos depicts a beautifully built shelter out of logs, grass, and leaves. It would have provided significantly more protection than if they had simply slept outside, even though it wouldn't have prevented entirely the rain. I hoped it was strong enough to hold together as the wind increased. Sound didn't carry well. At Woodstock 69, figuring out how to stay entertained was crucial. Not everyone could appreciate what was taking place on stage, after all. It appears that not enough loudspeakers were positioned throughout the farm so that everyone could hear the performer. Bill Hanley was the festival's sound engineer, but those farther back were clueless. This was another instance of issues arising from the event's unanticipated popularity. The organizers didn't have enough equipment to make everyone happy because they hadn't expected that many people to attend. Thankfully, there was no fuss from the audience, who resorted to creating their jokes if they could not appreciate the performance. Jerry Garcia's set issues. One of the acts that many were most excited to see at Woodstock was Jerry Garcia and his band. The man behind the scenes before their performance is depicted in this festival shot. Regretfully, even though he may have been beaming here, he may not have had many reasons to celebrate what transpired on stage. It appears the band encountered technical issues throughout their performance, in part due to the weather. Garcia and his bandmates ran the risk of electrocuting themselves due to the rain on the stage. Their guitars seemed to be exploding with blue sparks. Additionally, the stage was destroyed by the group's large equipment, and many of their songs were delayed. Governor considered National Guard. Security is essential for any celebration. It is impossible to have so many individuals in one location without someone to monitor everyone's conduct. But once more, the events at Woodstock differed significantly from what was anticipated. After all, the number of attendees at the festival was unexpected to the organizers. According to reports, the governor of New York was so worried about safety at Woodstock that they thought about calling in the National Guard to assist. However, bringing in such individuals would have created more problems than they would have resolved. The attendees of this festival were all about love and peace, not turmoil, but the National Guard might have provoked hostilities. Food supplies ran low. The organizers of Woodstock 69 faced numerous problems due to their lack of planning. There weren't enough resources, especially food, to satisfy everyone. Due to the considerably higher than anticipated number of guests, it appears the event ran out of food within a day. People might have gone hungry for the remainder of the event. The more hungry everyone got, the more likely a battle would break out, and this happy time in history would become one of bloodshed. Concession stands allegedly charged attendees exorbitant fees for food, which didn't help. This made it more likely that fights would start and that attendees would lose sight of the purpose of Woodstock, which was to promote love and peace. Food issues resolved. Fortunately, problems with the food supply did not lead to widespread conflict at Woodstock 69. The U.S. Army was called in to airlift supplies to the location, which is one of the causes. Considering how the people at Woodstock felt about the Army's participation in Vietnam at the time, this could have disturbed attendees. Fortunately, everyone kept the peace since the troops arrived with food and gifts. Attendees also avoided starvation by interacting with one another. With what they had, many people came together to help feed everyone. Additionally, several residents participated by preparing sandwiches and baking bread for needy people. Not Yasgur's first choice. For those unaware, Woodstock is a genuine location in New York, but this was not the location of the festival. The event's planners had difficulty finding a venue to fit their vision. However, they aimed for upstate New York's Howard Mills Industrial Park at one point. However, because of disputes with the townspeople, Woodstock was never held here. Similar to Bethel, not everyone approved of the notion of a local festival, but in this case, the resistance was powerful enough to prevent any attempts to have it here. The organizers arrived at Max Yasgur's farm in this manner. Hog Farm's eccentric fashion. Fashion fads come and go, and the 1960s had some crazy ones, as this Woodstock snapshot illustrates. At this festival, fringe coats and tie-dye clothing were very popular. In addition to being shared at the time, they were also well-liked by the kinds of people who went to Woodstock. You also made some strange fashion decisions, such as the outfit this man was seen wearing. He reportedly belonged to the Hog Farm group, which provided significant assistance during Woodstock. They provided a free kitchen, constructed pathways, and served as security. They allegedly used cream pies and seltzer bottles to keep everyone in line. Iconic hugging photo. Among the images from Woodstock 69, this one is regarded as one of the most famous. It shows Nick Erkeline and Bobby Kelly cuddling while taking in the surroundings. Many believe this picture captures the essence of the festival, which sought to unite people and celebrate the beauty of choosing love and peace over hate and strife. With the people surrounding them, not seeking cover under shelters, it appears the photo was taken during one of Woodstock's dry spells. This picture has a serene quality that might not be consistent with what one might anticipate from a festival, but that only serves to highlight how special Woodstock was. Freedom drew attendees. Attending a festival can be motivated by various factors, and Woodstock was no exception. However, the promise of freedom and the celebration of peace undoubtedly drew in hundreds of thousands of people. The occasion provided a respite from the harsh realities of everyday life. For others who felt that their life had been confined for years, Woodstock offered a chance to express themselves in any way they felt appropriate fully. For some, like these women, that meant taking off their shoes and spending much-needed time with companions who shared their interests. They only wanted to have fun and no desire for a revolution. Sleeping in graveyards. It is well known that Max Yasgur's farm was too small to house everyone and securely provide all the amenities they needed. Images from Woodstock have demonstrated how crowded the event was with attendees, leaving little space for campers to set up. This made it necessary for many attendees to look farther for a place to sleep. Several people thought that graveyards were the best places to sleep. Some people might be terrified to stay overnight in such a location, but this group seemed unconcerned. This was meant to be as good a place as any for them to rest. I hope they had no spectral guests during the night. Thrill-seeking activities. Given how crowded Woodstock was, a lot more occurred here than most people realize. To fill the time between performances or because they couldn't hear the music, many groups broke off and did their own thing. As seen in this photo, one made a sculpture out of trees. The men in this picture threw themselves onto the earth below, among other uses for the structure. Thankfully, hay was a cushion, preventing them from hurting themselves during their antics. There was another guy who, like you, scaled one tree and sat perilously up there reading a book. Critics condemned Woodstock. Woodstock 69 is regarded as a seminal historical event that shaped the counterculture generation. However, opinions of the celebration were very different at the time. Given that the attendance numbers were higher than anticipated, it was clear that many people found it appealing. Many denounced the occasion as a ludicrous indulgence during intense conflict. They didn't think it was appropriate to hold such a celebration at a time when the United States was embroiled in the Vietnam War. Of course, that tension was one of the driving forces behind Woodstock's initial planning. Furthermore, due to the festival's anti-establishment sentiment, there would always be those people who disagreed with it. Relaxing by the lake. There seemed to be a wide range of weather conditions in Woodstock. Occasionally, there was a lot of rain, which lowered the spirits of those in attendance and impacted the stage acts. At other times, it was pleasant and sunny, so it was possible to relax while partially clothed. The latter can be seen in the following Woodstock image. There was a lake farther away from Woodstock's main attraction where attendees could unwind and amuse themselves while taking in the tranquil atmosphere of the event. This location was perfect for anyone who wanted to sunbathe, swim, or dip their toes in the water. It was also more isolated from the throngs of people elsewhere. Substance use at Woodstock. Whatever happens, Woodstock will always be connected to something. We're talking about the alleged widespread use of illegal narcotics during the festival. During those 3 days, people built up stalls to supply anyone in need and openly advertised where to acquire it, not even bothering to conceal how they used it. Because of how much was being used and traded, officials didn't bother to advise participants to stop. Instead, they allegedly gave tourists health warnings about things to stay away from. This was crucial, mainly since the usage and abuse of these drugs were linked to the large amount of medical assistance needed at Woodstock. Sleeping through the day. Even during the hours when people would often sleep, Woodstock 69 seemed to be a hive of activity for the entire 3 days. That's most likely because some artists didn't get on stage until the wee hours of the morning. For example, it has been stated that Creedence Clearwater Revival didn't begin performing until 3 in the morning. Attendees were then given an option. People were up at 3 in the morning because they could either try to remain up during the band's performance, miss it entirely, or get some sleep sooner. Those who chose the latter usually grabbed some Z's throughout the day, sleeping for a few hours whenever possible. It seems that they ended up resting in some strange locations. Not everyone enjoyed Woodstock. We frequently want to think of Woodstock as this historic occasion that made hundreds of people happy and motivated countless others to spread love and peace. Regretfully, that wasn't true. Not everyone had a good time at the festival, even though it was by no means the catastrophe that some media at the time implied it was. Some folks had a terrible time at Woodstock, as these pictures from the festival demonstrate. Much of the animosity was probably due to the weather. It caused the ground to become quite muddy, which made people feel a little grosser and left their stuff filthy. This and the rubbish all over the place ruined the festival's mood. Fences for drying clothes. Many guests found their garments soaked through due to Woodstock's unpredictable weather. Given the chance of contracting pneumonia, wearing these wasn't an option. However, not everyone brought enough clothing to cover the unfavorable weather. People started developing creative ways to help dry their clothes, which is when solutions like this came in. At Woodstock, hanging clothes on a fence was a great technique to speed up drying during the brighter spells. Naturally, not everyone at the festival had access to such a thing. Nevertheless, the barriers were quite helpful to individuals who had been able to camp next to one. Not until it began to rain again, anyway. Joe Cocker's Thunderstorm set. Joe Cocker was another of Woodstock's iconic performances. In what turned out to be a turning point in his career, he took the stage on a Sunday afternoon. He covered, with a little help from my friends, a song that seemed to be a big hit with the audience as one of the songs he performed that day. It was also timely because a thunderstorm struck just after he finished. Thousands of his admirers were drenched due to the 2-hour stage delay. The colors had allegedly soaked through the fabric and onto Joe's skin when he removed his tie-dye shirt later. It left a rather striking pattern in its wake. Big names turned down. According to reports, Santana was one of the performers who gained the most from Woodstock 69. They weren't as well liked as some other names at the event when they played on a Saturday night. Nevertheless, this was their most memorable moment and contributed to their success following the event. So many other actions may have obtained the same benefits. However, many people rejected Woodstock because they thought it wouldn't be the massive event it was. This included Bob Dylan, who reportedly didn't enjoy many performers scheduled to play at the occasion. Additionally, it was rumored that the Beatles turned down an invitation to Woodstock, allegedly due to Cynthia Lennon's exclusion. Ravi Shankar's crowd scare. It's possible that some of these individuals who declined Woodstock later came to regret their choice. Despite the festival's problems, many of the performers who attended benefited from their participation. Additionally, the majority of them appear to have had excellent Woodstock experiences. Unfortunately, not everyone experienced that. Ravi Shankar, who played on Friday night, was said to have had a less than ideal experience. Ravi reportedly claimed that the lack of crowd control made Woodstock quite terrifying and that the sheer volume of people there prevented him from having fun. Although everything went smoothly, he reportedly worried about his safety while performing. Ambulances struggled in traffic. Many people in Woodstock could help those in need with their medical needs. However, these doctors were limited in what they could do. People were usually at a loss if they became hurt or needed medical care. Unfortunately, they couldn't just call for an ambulance to help them in such a situation. As people abandoned their cars and rushed to Woodstock, the roads were clogged with traffic, making it impossible for ambulances to access the event. This meant everyone, including the individual shown above, who needed assistance, was at a loss. After a fender incident, he was flung from a car's trunk and struck his head. Army helicopter evacuations. The organizers had to adopt alternative methods when traffic prevented ambulances from getting to the property. As a result, they had the U.S. Army transport supplies and provide helicopter escorts to the hospital. Since it was hard to get to Woodstock on foot, the only option was to fly, which did not precisely excite everyone. Some participants were upset at the U.S. Army's presence and tried to prevent them from attending the festival. But after realizing that the Army was there to assist people and not to sabotage the event, they finally decided not to interfere. By the end of Woodstock, many hundred people were reportedly helicoptered out. Children enjoyed Woodstock. Woodstock 69 was not exactly what most people would consider a kid-friendly event. This festival was probably not the best place to take a child because of the abundance of drugs consumed there, the weather issues, and the risks they presented. However, according to sources, many children reportedly attended Woodstock in 1969. Parents committed to promoting love and peace probably thought their children would gain from this experience. Many people who grew up at Woodstock were undoubtedly thankful to have been a part of such a significant historical event. They most likely weren't all acting appropriately at the time, though. Passing time creatively. Some individuals enjoy meticulously organizing every aspect of their lives. Others simply live in the now and follow the current. The latter group gained the most from Woodstock, where individuals were allowed to have as much fun as they wanted. The performers on stage did have a timetable, but other than that, things were rather laid back. People were even more inclined to enjoy themselves and do as they pleased because there was a lot of leisure during the festival. There were plenty of ways to kill time, whether blowing bubbles, making and selling art, or getting to know new people. Music beyond the stage. In 1969, some of the top musicians of the day performed on the Woodstock stage, but they weren't the only ones who brought music to the celebration. Many people also performed music away from the masses to amuse themselves and others. These little groups were releasing a variety of tracks. Before joining the miles of traffic, many Woodstock attendees packed their choice of instruments, ready to perform. It's possible that some of these musicians were inspired to perform their songs by the drugs they had previously taken. However, their music contributed to the love and peace that fueled Woodstock's unique environment. Few cleaning options. Particularly for a festival like Woodstock, cleanliness is crucial. Not everyone felt the same way, even though some guests may not have given much thought to personal hygiene over the 3-day event. Although there weren't many services to assist them, many individuals tried to care for themselves. Their greatest assets were the water pumps. Anyone who has ever attempted to wash their hair under the faucet is aware that this isn't the most effective method of personal hygiene. Sadly, there isn't much else you can do in 1961 if you're at an event that isn't equipped to handle hundreds of thousands of people. They had something to help them, at least. Yoga and meditation popular. Woodstock was more than simply a chance for people to spend days enjoying the joy of love and peace and listening to fantastic music. Additionally, it allowed people to take a break from their daily routines and genuinely have time to reflect. There's no better place to find inner serenity than a festival like this one. As a result, it was not unusual to witness people at Woodstock doing yoga and meditation. Making time for these activities was especially important to those who adhered to Satchidananda Saraswati's teachings. With so many like-minded people around them, they knew that not doing so would waste a great opportunity. Far from the stage. Attending a festival is typically the result of someone's strong desire to watch particular acts perform live. When that band or artist is scheduled to perform, they are anxious to secure a fantastic place and are unhappy if unsuccessful. Sadly, getting to the front is challenging, mainly when the venue is as crowded as it was at Woodstock. Naturally, the fact that the stage's music didn't go as far as it should have made Woodstock worse. As a result, individuals seated at the back could not appreciate the artists. It makes sense that many bands split off and sang their songs, allowing others to enjoy themselves despite the letdown. Early vegetarians and vegans. Although the theme of Woodstock 69 was love and peace, not all attendees would become close. It is just not possible for hundreds of thousands of people to get along flawlessly because they are all too unique. Even though each person is different, many Woodstock attendees had ideals similar to the one displayed here. In the 1960s, veganism and vegetarianism were not as popular as today. Nonetheless, Woodstock probably appealed to many Americans who were adamant about abstaining from animal products then. Therefore, we strongly doubt that this individual was alone in his activism, even though he was the only one present with such a placard. Revolving stage broke down. Considering how Woodstock would have changed if the organizers had had more time to manage things is incredible. Once a venue was confirmed, there was a rush to get everything ready. Due to the scheduling constraints, they ultimately had to forego some of their original designs, including their intention to construct a rotating stage. Performers may have prepared themselves to perform while another was on stage if this had been realized. The stage would just turn around after the first act finished, and the next group would begin to perform. They could not fix the issue within the allotted time since the heavy stage equipment had destroyed the mechanism. Books sold at Woodstock. Woodstock was not just about selling crafts and certain narcotics. Books about the hobbies many festival-goers shared were another item they could purchase. Religion, war, peace, and even some classic literature were all topics covered in these writings. According to reports, the authors of this literature wanted to motivate a new generation. The final number of volumes sold throughout those 3 days is unknown. However, we anticipate that as people looked for things to do during the event, these kiosks attracted a lot of attention. Though there is no indication of its popularity, one of these Woodstock photographs depicts what such a stall looked like. Sleeping on cars. At Woodstock, people seemed genuinely prepared to sleep anywhere they could. In addition to cemeteries, cars appeared to be open to snoozy visitors. These 2 males were seen on camera unconscious atop a vehicle. All we can do is hope it was one of them, not another festival goer. Even in a crowded place like Woodstock, There are much more comfortable places to sleep than on top of a car. There was undoubtedly a place on a field somewhere that would have provided a more restful night's sleep. They would have benefited even more from the inside of the car. Maybe this was their method of deterring burglars. Tim Hardin's Woodstock debut. The Woodstock Music Festival had a positive impact on each performer's career. Unquestionably, the incident significantly affected the future of individuals whose careers had not yet taken off. One such performance was Tim Hardin, a little less well-known than some of the festival's other names at the time. Woodstock seemed to want to honor those already established themselves while showcasing up-and-coming talent. Therefore, Hardin was called in to entertain the crowds on Friday, and he used just his voice and a guitar to enchant them. According to reports, he received $2,000 for the assignment and appreciated the chance. Painted buses on farm. Many may have found getting to Woodstock in their cars challenging and had to walk instead. There were plenty of cars parked on the farm, though, so that doesn't imply there weren't any cars at the festival. Many of these were colorfully painted buses, which are thought to represent the hippie community. These had advantages, even if they might have taken up space at the location. For starters, their roofs provided a place for people to sit and see the surroundings more clearly. Additionally, the interior offered a place of refuge for the thousands of people without a place to hide when the weather got bad and soaked them. Bad weather prompted exits. It can be pretty challenging to stay positive when you're stranded in the rain. This is particularly true when you're at a festival and have to deal with getting wet and standing in mud, which makes everything muddy. Some people left Woodstock before the festival ended since this was too much for them. Maybe they wouldn't have retreated so quickly if it had been more straightforward for them to wash up and keep everything dry. Naturally, many guests realized this was a one-of-a-kind experience, so they were still prepared to endure the poor weather and all the issues it brought. They had no intention of leaving. Crowds praised Max Yasgur. Max Yasgur was considered a hero by those who went to Woodstock in '69. Although they didn't know much about the man, he was worthy of celebration because he had donated his property for the festival. Thousands of people gave him a favorable reception when he took the stage at Woodstock to greet the crowd. Fortunately, someone was present to record the event inside Woodstock, and it's noteworthy for reasons other than just the reaction Yasgur got. There seems to have been another notable individual in this photo, positioned in the lower left corner, Martin Scorsese, if you don't recognize him. He was there filming a successful documentary about Woodstock. Woodstock became free. Spending money on something and later learning that others are receiving the same thing for nothing must be annoying. Unfortunately, the organizers of Woodstock had few options. Due to time constraints, they eventually had to choose between completing the stage and installing all the fencing. People may enter the festival without paying for a ticket because they finally decided on the former. Trying to prevent anyone from doing this seemed pointless, especially because so many music aficionados were attending. Ultimately, Woodstock was made free for everybody, increasing the number of individuals who traveled to Bethel to participate in the event. Hendrick's lasting legacy. Jimi Hendrix was the one person people came to Woodstock specifically to see. At the time of the festival, he was at the top of his game. Therefore, his inclusion in the lineup of performers was sure to draw large crowds. Regretfully, not everyone saw Hendrix because he was supposed to perform at the end of the festival. As the three-day festival ended, those deterred by the lousy weather missed his legendary performance. We assume that the thousands of people who stayed to see him play are also happy that they did. After all, Hendrix didn't unexpectedly die until the following year. Those who missed him at Woodstock likely felt a great deal of remorse. Massive cleanup operation. At any festival, trash is an issue. Things will inevitably be disposed of incorrectly when so many people are in one location. Unfortunately, this also happened at Woodstock '69. The amount of trash accumulated over 3 days was a serious issue. The subsequent cleanup effort was no easy undertaking. Fortunately, several festival attendees allegedly stayed behind to assist with this endeavor. They also used the debris to create a vast peace symbol that helicopters could view from above. Hopefully, their efforts helped Max Yasgur, who had agreed to host Woodstock without anticipating such a catastrophe. Woodstock could have been worse. Woodstock might have turned out badly. Such an incident is inevitable for any gathering that anticipates many attendees and significantly exceeds that number. Numerous fatalities, a severe outbreak of disease, severe hostilities among guests, and much more may have occurred. But that was not the case at Woodstock. Indeed, hundreds of individuals needed medical care throughout the festival, and there were a few terrible deaths. Nevertheless, given how gravely things could have gone wrong, everything turned out well. That demonstrates how laid back the majority of Woodstock 69 attendees were and how much they truly appreciated their message of love and peace. Dangerous sound tower climbs. Given some of the things people did at Woodstock, it's also incredible that there were as few deaths and injuries as there were. Attendees were climbing over scaffolding, building constructions out of trees, and jumping off them. These days, doing such kind of action would land someone in trouble. Fortunately, these men survived the descent from the sound tower despite taking their own lives. Considering how many drugs were present at Woodstock that would have affected someone's coordination and balance, that may come as a surprise. Maybe the individuals depicted here were of sound mind because they abstained from using such substances. Failed Woodstock replications. Millions of people will always have positive memories of Woodstock 1969 despite the problems at the event. It will undoubtedly never be viewed in the same manner as the Woodstock a few decades later. Numerous attempts have been made to duplicate the event's popularity, but they have never captured the essence of what made the first Woodstock so enjoyable. The 1999 event particularly poorly did this. The event, also hosted in New York, was rife with controversy due to expensive food and water, poor sanitation, and extreme heat. Additionally, there were complaints of violence, harassment, and assault, and the guests' behavior was completely different from what it had been in the past. In addition, additional people died. The crowds, an ocean of people. In addition to being a music festival, Woodstock 69 was a huge cultural event that united people from all walks of life. The enormous size of the crowd is frequently displayed in the rare photographs of this occasion. The 600-acre estate in Bethel, New York, hosted thousands of festival attendees, making it one of the biggest gatherings of its sort in history. As the festival swiftly became free, some pictures show a sea of faces that spread as far as the eye can see, with people seated shoulder to shoulder, many without tickets. The number of people who showed up is challenging to comprehend, and many had no idea where they would sleep. The images convey a story of unplanned solidarity and a sense of shared freedom despite the absence of planning and infrastructure. The culture, a celebration of love and peace. Woodstock 69 was a cultural revolution in addition to a music festival. The festival's vibe was characterized by a profound sense of peace, love, and unity captured in the event photos. Young people freely expressed themselves through fashion, art, and even body language while wearing vibrant apparel and, in some instances, flower crowns. In numerous pictures, participants are seen protesting the Vietnam War and holding up placards calling for peace. After all, the festival served as a protest, a call for social change, and a musical celebration. One of the rarest pictures depicts a spontaneous assembly of festival-goers on the grounds, calmly existing despite the mayhem. For many, Woodstock became more than just a music festival. It became a movement and an ideal. How Woodstock turned into a chaos, the logistics. The rare images of the turmoil are equally as telling as the behind-the-scenes logistics of Woodstock 69. Infrastructure was not built to accommodate such a large throng, and organizers were utterly unprepared for the number of individuals who would attend. These images depict dirty campgrounds, huge lineups at food kiosks, and even individuals scaling trees to better view the performance. Attendees accepted the disorder despite it. It contributed to the festival's allure and, in many respects, reflected the countercultural trend then sweeping America. Woodstock, a microcosm of the 1960s rebellion against conventional conventions, was planned and unplanned. The repercussions, a significant cultural event. Woodstock 69 had an impact that extended well beyond the weekend. Rare images captured in the aftermath depict the festival grounds' leftovers, including rubbish lying about and the ruins of a surreal event that permanently altered music and culture. The aftermath images mark both the end of one era and the start of a new one. Woodstock was about more than simply the music. It was about making something more significant than life, an occasion that would be remembered for years. These images provide an insight into the festival's unvarnished, unstaged moments that weren't covered by the media. They offer a fresh perspective on the legendary Woodstock phenomenon by narrating what it was like to be a first-hand observer of the cultural transformation of the 1960s. The feeling of belonging and common experience. The indisputable sense of camaraderie among the festival attendees is among the most remarkable aspects of Woodstock 69, which the rare photographs frequently portray. People are shown connecting with total strangers in numerous pictures, providing them with food, water, and sometimes shelter. A couple wrapped in blankets enjoying peace amid the commotion of thousands of festival-goers is depicted in one of the festival's most famous pictures. The festival developed into a haven for people looking for a stronger sense of community in addition to fantastic music. The implicit philosophy of Woodstock seems to be, we're all in this together. These unscripted photos demonstrate how that spirit manifested in real life, where social and political differences were set aside in favor of unity. Attendees took solace in this shared experience, frequently depending on one another to get through the weekend despite the crowds, the muck, and the logistical difficulties. Rare behind-the-scenes images show volunteers supporting others, erecting makeshift medical stations, and helping to create rest areas. In these photographs of strangers becoming lifelong friends, the spirit of camaraderie was evident and tangible. The existence of icons from countercultures. In addition to being a music festival, Woodstock 69 served as a gathering place for prominent counterculture members. The event's appeal was greatly enhanced by these figures, who ranged from artists to campaigners. In addition to capturing musicians performing live, the unique festival photographs also feature prominent people interacting with the audience or giving spontaneous statements. One well-known image shows anti-establishment activist Abby Hoffman making a political statement by scaling the stage during The Who's concert. The image serves as a potent reminder of the political overtones of the event, where the cause and the music were inextricably linked. Additional images depict the presence of peace activists who spoke out against social issues ranging from civil rights to the Vietnam War, using the festival as a forum. Not only were these countercultural leaders speaking and performing at the event, but they were also putting their beliefs into practice. Additionally, the infrequently captured images depict them as crowd members, engaging with the very people they aim to motivate rather than as remote idols. Music's function and how it affected lives. Although the performances at Woodstock are renowned, the music had a more significant influence than most people know. For those who witnessed it, the unique images depict the performers performing and the audience's intense reaction to the music. One striking picture shows a gathering of young individuals huddled around a guitar in the early morning, harmonizing to a tune. The image perfectly captures how music at the time could change people. For many spectators, Woodstock was about more than just listening to their favorite performers. It was about developing a very intimate connection with the music. Since the song resonated with a generation, many of these young people felt they were a part of something far more significant than themselves. The images of this era demonstrate the transcendence of music as a medium for social change and the relationship between the performer and the audience. Not only did artists like Joan Baez, Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, and Richie Havens fill the air with their music, but they also encouraged people to think differently and view the world differently. You can see in the pictures of their performances how intently the audience listens, sometimes closing their eyes in contemplation as they absorb the impact of each note. The impact of Woodstock on upcoming festivals. Not only did Woodstock 69 impact the attendees, but it also had a long-lasting effect on the planning and celebrating of music festivals. Rare images from the event show chaotic yet inventive moments, including the first crowd surfing incidents and the emergence of the contemporary festival vibe, a space where counterculture, art, and music coexist. Woodstock's influence can also be observed in subsequent event generations. The early incarnations of what would eventually be known as festival fashion, tie-dye shirts, peace signs, and a generally carefree bohemian aesthetic, can be seen in a few pictures. Even though these pictures precede major multi-day festivals like Coachella and Glastonbury, the essence of what Woodstock stood for is still present in these gatherings. Further festival planning was also improved due to the site's visual documentation, particularly the images highlighting the enormous infrastructure constraints. It served as a reminder to the sector of what it meant to oversee and serve sizable audiences. In addition to documenting the event, these unique photos also shed light on how it permanently changed the festival scene. Woodstock's effect on the media. There were fewer venues for immediate reporting in 1969, and the media landscape was very different from today's. However, the unique images from Woodstock demonstrate how media is evolving in real time. The festival's amateur photographers captured many photos, defining Woodstock's visual language. These unscripted images mainly contributed to Woodstock's transformation into a historic event. These pictures helped shape the story of Woodstock as a representation of love, peace, and revolt in newspapers, magazines, and subsequent documentaries. These images greatly influenced future generations' perceptions of the festival and how the world perceived the counterculture movement. These photographs are intriguing because they show a change in how significant cultural events were covered, moving away from staged photo shoots and controlled press conferences and toward documenting events as they occurred. Although many of these uncommon images were at first disregarded, they eventually came to capture the spirit of Woodstock and solidified its place as a significant cultural event. The crowd's unity and diversity. The gathering at Woodstock was a diverse set of people, not just a sea of white young folks. Rare images from the festival depict diverse people, including singers, artists, activists, and hippies, all joining together for a shared experience. One compelling image captures a black guy and a white lady dancing together in the mud, signifying the solidarity that Woodstock stood for. As attendees of Woodstock advocated for an open society, the crowd's diversity echoed the larger struggle for equality. The unique images serve as a reminder that although Woodstock was a gathering of young people from the counterculture, it was also a gathering of people dedicated to changing society. In addition to shattering the boundaries of music, Woodstock dismantled those of color, class, and background, fostering an atmosphere that championed diversity rather than polarized it. These pictures demonstrate how the 1960s variety and the generation's defining ideals of love, peace, and inclusivity were reflected in Woodstock. The event's photographs represent the strength of uniting people from all walks of life to achieve more significant things. The part drugs and free love play. It was well known that Woodstock 69 was associated with the counterculture movement, which featured open drug use and the acceptance of the idea of free love. Young people dancing in complete happiness, their faces glowing with joy, and a certain freedom in their body language are captured in numerous unique photographs. For many, the occasion was as much about emancipation and self-expression as it was about music. Since drugs were frequently linked to the hippie movement's goal of enlarging awareness, they were present at Woodstock, especially marijuana and psychedelics like LSD. Several infrequent images show groups of people with their heads held high, eyes appearing deep in contemplation, or having meaningful talks. In contrast, others congregate in close quarters, as if to celebrate the spirit of openness and exploration. The occasion was about more than just partying. It was about defying the prevailing social mores of the day and opting for a life centered on love, peace, and individual liberty. It's crucial to remember that not everyone at Woodstock actively engaged in these activities, even though it was a profound societal change. Some guests were more drawn to the togetherness experience and the music. These famous images, however, demonstrate how Woodstock came to represent the cultural experiment in freedom and self-expression, where people felt free to defy social norms, have candid discussions about life and love, and in certain situations, embrace the ability to experiment with drugs. The legendary acts and surprising scenes. Woodstock's musical lineup was revolutionary, with some of the most recognizable names in music history, including Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and The Who. Even if most people know the leading performers, the rare pictures from these shows capture the unanticipated moments that became historical events. Jimi Hendrix's performance of The Star-Spangled Banner, a defining feature of Woodstock and the protest movement of the 1960s, was among the most unforgettable. Rare pictures of this performance show Hendrick engrossed in his guitar solo and the music while the audience looks on in wonder, many of them with their eyes closed in thought. The image, which depicts a moment of great passion, perfectly illustrates how Woodstock was more than just a festival. It was a cultural event that influenced American politics and society. Similarly, Janis Joplin's intense and heartfelt performance, recorded in grainy black and white photos, emanated genuine passion. These images capture the musician's musical prowess and the close bond between them and the crowd. These rare images are precious because they capture the ephemeral, unique moments that cemented Woodstock's historical significance. Some performances, such as those by Joe Cocker or The Who, were so unvarnished and powerful that the pictures captured the audience's profound emotional response. For many, the festival was more than just a music gathering. It was a transformative experience. These moments, captured in time, provide insight into the emotional impact of Woodstock.
If you've watched the video till here, that means you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notifications bell icon